the horse was fascinating to me because it changed the entire balance of power on the plains. You know, from the Comanche to the Ute to the Shoshone. You know,
Oh,
they
exactly.
were it until the Blackfeet got there.
Clink.
Clink.
How are you, my good friend?
I am perfect and getting better. Have no
As
complaints
always.
here. Yeah.
I love it. I'm living the dream. It's a beautiful 50 degrees. There's no snow outside for the time being. It might come next week. Who knows? It might come the week after that, but it's coming.
Yeah. It's been windy here. So it was raining. It's been rain off and on, but the wind has been just going the whole time. So we were supposed to get wind today anyway. So not too surprising.
And if those of you not familiar with the North Pacific Northwest, North Oregon coast where Mark is at, it's always windy there. So when he's like, we're supposed to get wind, that means they're getting big wind.
Yeah, that's true. It is always windy. And then it's always wet too. It's always raining, which,
Yeah.
you know, we're supposed to get 1, maybe 2 dry days this week.
Yay, you.
Oh, I know, right? But
you know, I'm blessed. I get to go out. I get to go take a trip with my uncle, the chairman of the Little Shell tribe. We're going to go on a hunting adventure, you know, get out into nature this upcoming weekend. So I'm excited for that. You know, I'm excited that the creator will give me a deer. Maybe not, you know, will depend on how good I was. No, I'm just kidding. But we will go out there. We're going to be looking for some meat, you know, and give it to the people who need meat, you know, and want some food. I think that's what I want to do. So I'm super excited for that. I get to go to pretty much what I like to call the middle of nowhere, Montana, Winnett, Montana. You know, you're the only person for miles and miles around. You're in God's country. You're up in the mountains. You're out in the sticks. You're in these hills, the prairie, the grassland. I love it.
Hey, I just want to jump into something really quick.
What is it?
I want to know if you've heard about this. Somebody shot the all-white moose up in Canada. Some hunters shot and killed the albino moose.
I get it. I get why, but I'm against that as a hunter personally.
I don't think it's good meat because he's been around a while.
Well, that and the albino ones, I think they have they're missing enzymes, they're missing genes, they're missing certain things that make them so different and unique. There's a lot of native stories. You know, you have the white albino redwood tree, you know, and it was well,
that's what the article I was reading, you know, the First Nation people up in Canada, they are very upset about this. They call it the spirit moose. So
yeah, it's the white buffalo, right? The great white buffalo, the legend, the lore, the white bear, the same thing. The tribes up in Washington, whenever there's a white bear, you know, it's a spiritual being, it's a creator being, and it really makes me think, you know, you go back to those stories, those teachings of the past that are you know, brother bear, you know, you have the trickster coyote, you have the trickster raven, you have the eagles, the eagle speakers, the ones that walk among us, and these beautiful things. And then you add the layer of the white one's the holy one. You know, it's the Jesus fucking Christ, everybody.
Yeah.
And then you're gonna get some poed out motherfucker like this, go with a gun, go shoot it. No, come on, man. Respect the wildlife, respect the animal. I get it was probably some gnarly trophy one because all the other hunters passed it up, you know, so it could grow so big and grow so beautiful. Albino creatures are beautiful to see. There's one out in the neighborhood by my parents' house here in Montana. there was an albino deer that lived out that way. It was, I've seen it a few times in my life. It's the coolest thing to come across and see. And everyone in Billings would say, like, don't shoot it, don't hunt it, because we want to show everyone. We want to show the generations that have yet to live that can come see this. You know, we want to show the little kids that don't know what it is when they're adults. You know, let that thing be around. So I'm against the albino one, but from a hunting perspective, I can see his side.
I don't.
But we aren't that dependent on the meat and animal for survival anymore. So that need and want for that animal, you're turning it into a trophy. And if you are purely trophy hunting, where's the sport in that?
Yeah, I am not for this guy shooting and killing this moose, because I'm not in for hunting the sport. You know, if you're using it for food, I am 100% with you there. That's totally fine. It's the trophy aspect. And then there's just sometimes you need to pass on things. You know, I don't care if it was the last day of the hunt and you're just looking to get some meat. No, that's one. I don't understand the motive for shooting that specific animal.
Shoot it with your camera and not the gun.
Yeah.
With the white moose. For me personally, oh man, that.
Yeah. I
did not hear about that, and you ruined my fucking day. So I'm glad we recorded the interview before this, because it would have been a shitty interview without it. We have a great guest, a good friend of mine, one of the OGs of Pompey's Pillar, you know, the ranger, Sonni Hope. We'll have her later on, so I'm excited for that. Yeah, no,
it's a great interview, talking about Pompey's Pillar. So, I mean, shoot, it's a doozy of one. So I think it's fair. We can just jump right into it. You know, for the people out there, Ranger Sonni Hope. Yeah, okay. We're here today with the wonderful and amazing Sonni Hope. She is a park ranger out at Pompey's Pillar, all the way in Montana. So I'm just going to start right into it. Sonni, if you just want to give us kind of a brief introduction to yourself and what exactly you do out at Pompey's Pillar in that kind of gist.
So my work at Pompey's Pillar is pretty much a jack of all trades. I'm a park ranger. We don't have the specialization out here, say, that you would with National Park Service park rangers. So I do fee collection, I do maintenance, I do interpretation, and also a fun little thing they call other duties as assigned. So basically I get to deal with whatever comes my way. But that also means that I get to interact with the public in almost every way imaginable, whether I'm actually doing an interpretive program or I'm out doing maintenance. I'm here for the public, and that's my primary job, is to connect the public to the site, especially since a lot of them have no idea what Pompey's Pillar is.
Well,
that's part of the fun.
What I like with the BLM, and you hit on it right away, is the BLM, people don't really understand the differences that park rangers have working for like the BLM versus like national parks, where, you know, if I was a national parks ranger, I'm either just an interpretive guy, I'm a fee collector, and that's it. That's the only thing I do all day long. And that's one thing I didn't know about when I first worked for the BLM. So it was kind of interesting to get into that. Definitely keeps you on your toes, I feel like.
It does, but it also keeps you moving. It keeps you doing new things and learning new things. And I think that's the key to it. That's why, you know, 90% of the people I work with, or 95%, they like it that way. You know, you're not stuck doing the same thing for 8 or 10 hours. So, and it keeps you on your toes.
I can only imagine how many, I'm guilty. I fell asleep once or twice out at that fee station. That was only a couple hours working out there. You know, I can only imagine 8, 9 hours in some of those, like, those far off distance parks that no one visits.
But you have to, with the Park Service too, they get so much more visitation. I think even in the far off parks that you really have to work hard to get to, they have their network is bigger. Let's say, I mean, they have
that makes sense
at the moment than we do, so people know about these places. Like I went on a ferry for an hour and a half to get to the Dry Tortugas National Park. So, you know, they're out there and people know about them. And we're right here along the interstate and people don't quite know about us yet. So
that's what makes Pompey's Pillar so special, I feel.
Yeah.
Like. A hidden gem.
Yeah.
Yeah. And because it is kind of a hidden gem, I'm sure we're going to have some people who don't really know what Pompey's Pillar is. So if you could, for our listeners, just describe because of what it is exactly. And so if they want to go, they can go and see this beautiful place.
So this is the fun part. There's really no good adjective to describe Pompey's Pillar as the rock formation itself. I basically call it a giant rock on the wrong side of the Yellowstone River. So the significance of the site touches on the geology, the geography, its placement in the Yellowstone Valley. It touches on human history from prehistory on the plains all the way up to the homesteader era here, and the natural history, so the wildlife especially. Being on the Yellowstone River, we're right smack dab where two very special environments come together. So that would be the river and the plains. So excellent place for birding if you happen to be a birder, or just the environment itself. Being by the river, I think, is one of my favorite things. So one of those human needs, I think, is to be by water.
Yeah, no, for sure. I've been at least, I know I've been at least once. I don't know if I've been, yeah. And I remember it being right there by the river, and it's, you know, it's a cool river. I mean, the Yellowstone, you know, it's so vast. I mean, we were on the Yellowstone in Gardner, Montana, you know, and then to be all the way kind of eastern Montana and still see that same river, it's kind of cool. And it's a nice, neat little spot there for Pompey's Pillar.
Yeah, for sure. And the Yellowstone, I call it the tale of two rivers. You know, you've got the mountain river up by Gardner, and then you have the Plains River down where we are. And you get a little further east where the Bighorn River comes into the Yellowstone, then it changes again a little bit. So it's, you know, it's not the same river from start to finish, which is cool. And a lot of people don't realize that either. But
what would be kind of the difference between the mountain river of the Yellowstone to the Plains River of the Yellowstone?
So you see the riverbed change, and the water temperature change, and of course you have the fish change, and everything that comes along with it. So right about Laurel, Montana, is where the Yellowstone, I think, changes from the mountain river to the Plains River. Is you have the Clark's Fork of the Yellowstone coming, and that kind of alters the environment of the river as it rolls in. So when fishermen come here, they like, well, what do you got? You've got trout here? No, we don't have trout at Pompey's Pillar. You got to go upstream a little bit. But we've got, you know, catfish and smallmouth bass and walleye and sauger and this whole other slog of fish. So it's, you know, part and parcel, Pompey's Pillar is tied to the water.
And one thing I find interesting about the Yellowstone River is you can argue that the Mississippi River is technically the Yellowstone River because of the way it flows into both the Missouri, and then the way the Missouri flows into the Mississippi further downstream. But because they didn't know about these rivers before when they're doing the naming.
And the fact that you could technically say that the Mississippi is a tributary of the Missouri River.
Oh, exactly. Yeah.
It's longer. And people are like, no. So that won't go over real well, I don't think. But I think it's kind of cool.
No, I do too. Yeah, personally, as being a Montanan, right? You got to take ownership of that.
Absolutely.
Right?
I actually had no idea that they were that connected between the Missouri and the Mississippi and the Yellowstone. To be fair, I don't know really. I never really pictured like the end of the Yellowstone River before, you know, because I'm out on the Oregon coast where the end of the river is the ocean. So
right, yeah, your waters flow a different direction.
Yeah.
Once you get to the Continental Divide, the waters go to the Columbia River and eventually to the Pacific, whereas our waters go eventually to the Missouri and the Mississippi and the Gulf of Mexico.
Yeah, that's really cool. One, to be on that other side of it as well. Kind of going back to your park ranger kind of career, how long have you been working, one at Pompey's Pillar and then two kind of for the BLM there?
So I started at Pompey's Pillar in 2004, which means I just finished my 17th season.
Oh, wow. Congrats.
Mind boggler. Running on 2 decades, which is scary. But it's scary because time goes so fast. It just, thinking it's gone. And this is the only site that I've worked not only for the Bureau of Land Management, but for the federal government altogether. And so I grew up 50 miles east of here, and it's highly unusual for park ranger to get a job so close to home and stay so close to home. But it's treated me very well, and it's worked out very well. And as long as I still have something to offer the site and I'm still learning and contributing, I'm going to stick around.
Ooh,
that's awesome.
Yeah, that is 17 years. That's a long time. I'm sure.
Yeah, it's really fun when you tell little kids that are like 6 or 7 years old how long I've been working here. I'm like, oh, that's twice as long as I've been alive, So like, oh, thanks. But yeah, I'm not the semi-nomadic park ranger because a lot of people, even once they get the permanent positions, they just move from place to place, because there's so much to see and learn. And I can definitely empathize with that too. It's just there's so many cool places out there.
Are there any parks that you would also want to work at, or are you fine just visiting them?
I haven't traveled enough to know yet.
Okay.
I did think, I would go for a park at Dry Tortugas, but then you're stuck out, in the Atlantic and the Gulf of Mexico there, and you ferry in or you fly in and you're there.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, that would be a pretty cool experience, but it would take a certain kind of person too.
Yeah.
Okay with being by yourself and you're not there by yourself, but you're pretty isolated.
I remember, I forget Bob, when I worked out at Pompey's Pillar, Bob and Alexander was telling me, I had a conversation with that. He applied for a job up in Alaska at one of the parks up there. And it was like, only 4 people live there, and it's the people in the parks, and that's it.
Yeah.
It's nuts. And I don't know if I could do that personally.
Yeah, so some of us need a little bit more human contact, I think.
Right.
And some people don't. So
Yeah.
And out there
How was Dry Tortugas when you were down there? I've never.
Oh, I loved it. That was the whole reason why I went to Key West to start with, and say, Key West is a big party town, and I'm not a big party person, but that's the jumping off point to get to Dry Tortugas. And so I just thought it was fantastic.
Wow.
Make sure you don't get seasick.
Yeah.
And they tell you right when you get on the ferry, like, if you're gonna barf, don't barf over the side, because then you have to clean it off the boat. So they give you a whole long lesson on how to vomit on the ferry, which was great. I didn't need to, but it was like a whole new experience for me, because I'm totally landlocked.
Yeah.
All my life, so.
That's funny. It's the weird park rules that you come across. Each park has their own little unique rules like that. What were like the pillars? You can't walk off the edge. You can't climb up. You can't sign your name. But those seem pretty basic. I don't do. Is there any at the pillar that are like that? They're just kind of oddball, unique.
Don't drive on the sidewalk. Like the last 4 years, we've had 2 different people driving on our big sidewalk.
Oh, the river one?
Yeah.
Oh, no.
And so it really freaked the other rangers out. A year ago, it happened again. And I said, oh, no, not again. And they were like, again? I'm like, yeah, this is the second time I've seen this.
Oh, man.
Also thinking about, at least we don't have to tell people not to fry a chicken in the hot springs. So
Yeah.
National Park, I think they take the cake.
Yeah, no, that's true. Or put a bison in the back of your car.
Just when you think you've heard it all.
Right?
Right? Boil a chicken? Like, wow.
Well,
You know,
I mean,
I
think
heard that, and I did get curious, like what it would be like to try and boil a chicken in those hot pots, though.
I think that's the problem is we were all like, whoa, I wonder what that was like.
Yeah,
So now they have to actually say it. It's like, don't do this.
yeah, and don't. If
So,
you're a listener out there thinking about it, don't do it.
don't do it. Don't do it.
We do not encourage that. That is bad park behavior.
yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
So when they're driving on these sidewalks, like at Pompey's Pillar, is there like a good place like you could take your car to if you were to, or like I'm trying to figure out why someone would want to drive on the sidewalk.
Well, the last person said it's like, because we have a little turnaround spot right by the visitor center so that folks can drop their passengers off. They don't have to walk all the way from the parking lot. So the gal in the gift store just said, well, you can pull up by the visitor center and pick them up. Well, they took that literally and drove up right. They were almost to the visitor center when we caught them. And we're like, whoa, okay. It's like, you got to get off of the sidewalk and go back on the turnaround there.
Oh my gosh. I can picture this too, because what I don't get is the road it's in visible distance away to drive up there, and the path's over here, you know.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know.
Actually, the first one was even better because the old entrance gate was open, and so they drove in the old entrance gate, and they're up, you know, it's grass. They drove over the grass, and then they drove around the flagpole at the base of the pillar and drove by the cabin. I happen to be in the office that I am now. I look out there, and then I see this brown car going towards the visitor center. I'm like, what? I did swear out loud, which you're not supposed to do as a park ranger. I was like, what is that?
Right? Oh my gosh.
And it's like, they really didn't see the problem. I'm like, oh. So yeah, you see, it's interesting.
That's funny.
You know, it goes back to when you're traveling, you're in such an unfamiliar place. Sometimes it's kind of pulls you out of your comfort zone, and you're not sure what to do sometimes. You're like, whoops. So I do things like that when I travel too. Like, you know, you do things that are like, whoops, I shouldn't have done that. But
yeah.
I
always
Montana plates.
Yeah.
Yeah, I always play the dumb tourist card. And if I like really, really want to do it, I'll try and speak another language as best as I can. So then, oh no, they just really don't know.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's okay. That's the whole part of traveling, you know, is to learn.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, and that's one thing. I mean, yeah, I like that. Nice. We wandered away. Now we're coming back a little bit to you learn. And that's one thing I think Pompey's Pillar, the knowledge that rock alone can give us, you know, the Native American history, the history of the river, the weather, the bison history alone in that little valley that's right there. I mean, and then Lewis and Clark, and, you know, Manifest Destiny, and the train, and even 2020 and the way things are growing. You know, there'll be some sort of history, right?
Yeah, 2020 definitely left a mark on Pompey's Pillar.
There you go, right?
So at least it's just, you know, just another chapter, you know, in the history that the site's basically record of all these different stories.
Well, and personally, what I really liked about that, because, you know, I'm Native American, I'm Little Shell, and I was able to talk really heavily to the natures or the Native American side of it, whereas like Ranger Alexander, when he was out there, he was talking to people more about the trains because that was his passion, and he could talk to that history. I want to say, I think yours was geology, right?
It still is.
It still is? Okay.
Yeah, I did a little program on dirt, which was awesome.
Yeah.
Always wanted to do it because it's, you know, Pompey's Pillar, it all boils down to dirt. It's a sedimentary rock, and that rock cycle with sedimentary rock is alive and present at Pompey's Pillar, which is why we're having issues with the stabilization now. It's the natural processes at work. So it's kind of that goes back to the learning thing. We're watching it happen, which is, you know, from a human point of view is not good because it's eroding, but it's basically continuing that cycle, it's going down the river to be part of another rock, some, millions of years down the road. So that was kind of my takeaway for the season is, we're watching it happen before our eyes here. So
Yeah, I'm kind of curious on the like stabilization part of the rock. Like, what exactly are they trying to do to stabilize the pillar there?
So what we're learning is we don't have enough data to know what we need to do yet. So they're monitoring the changes in the rock and to see how the rock is moving and how the cracks are growing. And that's gonna determine a lot of how we can experience Pompey's pillar in the future. So we're kind of waiting on that right now.
So a question I have then is, given this and given the fact that it's a historical landmark, it's the only living, visible, physical evidence of the Lewis and Clark journey that we can still see of their trail today. With William Clark's signature, is there discussions or have there been discussions about if something like that were to occur, do they cut it out and put it on display somewhere? Or is that still like, we'll let future generations decide?
I've heard somebody from the BLM, of course, she wasn't associated with Pompey's pillar. She said, well, why don't you just cut it out of the rock if it's in danger? And I think that would be like the last case scenario, because, it's like fossils. Once you take it out of the earth, it's basically lost. The value is examining the environment that you found it in. And I think it's Clark's signature in almost every way. Is that you take it off the rock, then it's no longer in William Clark's footsteps.
Oh, I get what you're saying there.
It depends. I'm kind of on the side of let nature take its course, but you also want people to be able to continue to experience it. And so it's going to be interesting, to say the least, to see how things come about.
Yeah, no, for me, I wouldn't know what to do, because like you said, it could take millions of years for that moment to occur, right? It could be beyond us and something.
Yeah, for sure.
But it's learning about the fact that, that's it. That's the only proof we really know they went on that journey. In 2020 that we can see, that's like, no, that it actually happened. Look, here's where he signed his name, because you learn about things like the brand they had, the fort they built, in Mark's neck of the woods up there in Astoria, and all these other cool places that are gone or burned down, and
or underwater,
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But
so
it's crazy.
Pompey's pillar is so interesting because really with American history, that William Clark is our hook. He is our claim to fame. But it's also tricky because there's two other sites in the state of Montana that also have on-site physical evidence of the core of discovery where they left it. And those are actually two campsites. So one, it would be canoe camp where William Clark made his dugout canoes on the Yellowstone, and the other's Traveler's Rest just south of Missoula, where they crossed the mountains coming and going. So, for years, we did say we're the only on-site physical evidence of the core of discovery. And now it's kind of backed off a little bit to maybe the best visible, like you were saying.
Yeah.
Of it.
Well, that makes sense, yeah. Because
and then the other tricky part then is for so long we've been focused on William Clark, basically to the exclusion of everything else. Now we're learning we can't be a one-hit wonder and still survive as a historic and cultural site. So now we're reaching out and we're trying to tell more stories. And the longer I work here, the more I think of all each person that stopped here, they each had a story. And all these stories come together at Pompey's Pillar. So what we needed to be doing is telling more of these stories, because that's what's really cool about the site, is all these different people coming together here.
Do you have like a favorite newly discovered story that you may have about like Pompey's Pillar?
Well, actually one of our Montana Conservation Corps interns this year, she did some pretty good research, and there's a panel of rock art on the south side of the pillar that basically all you can see some red pigment, looks like a stripe of paint on it. And she dug into it, and she thinks that that particular part is what they call the LaRoque panel. And LaRoque was a French fur trapper who was actually here in 1805. So he was at Pompey's Pillar, we think, a year before William Clark even got here. So, and his story, this is the first year we've even told that story.
Dang, that's
So
really cool.
Yeah. His mission, he was from Quebec, and his mission was to come down and to trade with the Mountain Indians, which would have been the Crow people. And so he traveled with the Crow for a year, and then kept a journal like William Clark did, and talked about seeing this giant whitish perpendicular cliff, across the Yellowstone River. And so I'm pretty sure that was Pompey's Pillar.
Well, and what I like about that is, sometimes, us Americans, we get so caught up in our own egos in that sense, right? Where because Clark's the first American, that's where history begins,
Yeah, I think so in a lot of ways. Yeah. And we can't, we've got the rock art telling us a different story, that this has been a special spot for thousands of years. And then I would say, as long as there's been human beings on the Northern Plains, it's been a special spot.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, just one of the stories that I really, it's always caught my attention is the one about the guy who was hung over the edge on his saddle when he saw his name on the rock.
Yes.
Because
Baker.
there's no proof, and you can't tell, but where it's at, you're like, well, yeah, that's how you would get down there.
How else would he have done it?
Right?
Yeah. And so that was a fun thing this year about, having the walkway closed and not being able to go up the rock, is that we start making sure people go around the rock. As you go around the rock, you put little teasers saying, look up here and you'll see this. Look up here, you'll see this. And so then you kind of try to point people towards Baker's signature, and you could see them going around there and stopping by the chokecherry bush and looking up and looking around, and finally they find it. That was a huge benefit, is getting to introduce people to some of these other stories.
Well,
lore or not,
I love it. I mean, to me, that's what makes Pompey's Pillar so special, is everything. And even the stuff as a ranger that you get access to that the general public does not, and seeing some of the drawings and art and documentations that, because someone documented it and we have it in a book, we get a look at it, but the general public doesn't. I mean,
yeah,
it was really cool to learn and hear those stories as well. And I think that's what makes those places awesome.
Yeah, and we'll never know all the stories, and that's great.
Oh, exactly. Yeah.
If we ever stop learning or wanting to learn, then we're basically done. But there's always something to learn, and I think that's why I've stayed at Pompey's Pillar so long. There's still so much I need to learn and want to learn.
Well, and what I don't think a lot of people understand either is, if you were to go across the river, even into the rims, as they call them, the sandstone rock on the other side of the river, there's drawings, there's signatures, there's all that, but because it's private land, it's not accessible. And nor does the private landowner necessarily want to share that. And all those places in just the world that are, because of private land, you can't see and access, that you may give us the answers to some of our questions.
And that's hard too, because in some ways it's the private landowners not telling people where it is. That's a measure of protection in and of itself.
Oh, exactly.
That even, land management agencies will utilize for some very special places. So it's interesting, because I do want to see that stuff, but if it's better for me not to know where it is, if it keeps it, in existence and where it is, that's okay, because there's places I can go to see.
Yeah.
So did you ever go to Castle Butte?
No, that was one that I was told about. I always wanted to go, but no one ever wanted to go with me, so I just never did it.
Yeah, that's a really cool spot too. It's just, it's higher up than Pompey's Pillar, and it's a much bigger formation, and there's rock art all over it. And it's not just limited to the Crow, it's the Northern Cheyenne, it's the Blackfeet, it's all the people that traveled through here. And Pompey's Pillar was probably the same way too.
Well, and
Kind of a beacon.
you say it's the rock on the wrong side of the river, meaning the other side of the river is a nice little valley. You could, if you were a herd of bison or people, it's easy. You know, you're not climbing a cliff. You're going right across the river there. You're forging
Right. Yeah.
on the other side. And I think what people also don't understand is those trails have existed for thousands of years. Commerce, trade, governments were going on. And the way these tribes interacted with each other and using places such as the Pillar. And when you go there and you're standing on top of the rock and you could see the movement of the valleys,
Yeah.
you can just look back thousands of years. You know, I'm riding, you know, I'm walking, I'm pulling my teepee travois, you know, we're coming through here. And there's the
Right.
Crow, there's the Blackfeet, you know, they're meeting at places like this.
Well, they better be minding their manners too.
Yeah, I like to think so. I like to think it's the American manifest destiny that made the natives the warring culture that they were because of the way they were pushed west. But that's
I think-
my personal belief.
Yeah, I think the introduction of the horse had a lot to do with it. Because
Yeah.
you've got people that are super mobile. You know, you always have competition for the same resources. And now those like a Venn diagram, they're coming into contact quite a bit more often.
Well, and what I find interesting, you bring up a good point, and with the horses and the Shoshone people, and they were the first kind of big Western Columbia Plateau tribe to have the massive horse herds. That
Right,
they have.
yeah.
And they take claim to the Fort Laramie Treaty that gives tribes like the Umatilla, the Colville, the Nez Perce, and the Salish hunting rights to go hunt bison in Yellowstone Park in present day. And they use that. And I look at that and I look at the way trade and history happened. And it's like, you know, they were saying, we'll give you horses if you let us come hunt the bison. We'll come over the mountains. You let us hunt the bison, we'll give you horses.
Yeah.
But that's just, yeah.
There's such an interesting dynamic, you know, as far as what they call the Columbian exchange between Europe and North America. And the horse was fascinating to me because it changed the entire balance of power on the plains, you know, from the Comanche to the Ute to the Shoshone, you know, they were it until the Blackfeet got the horse and the gun.
Yeah.
So it's just fascinating history. And, you know, it comes together here too.
Well, and that's what I like is you get that confluence kind of
Crossroads
at the Pillar, at the Pillar, and you can see it, and you even see it today. Even, I mean, you can make the argument with I-94 and I-90 not being too far away, where they intersect and merge, and the differences with the way we trade and those two interstate systems and this and that. And like, I mean, I look at like I-90, I-25, and it's a sadder side to our history, you know, but it's going to be, we're going to talk about the drugs and the way they were used on the reservations to be smuggled up into even Canada and across the US and distributed. But that's, you know, that's its own story for another day.
But it all comes back to we're all following the same old trade routes.
Exactly. That's what the Pillar really taught me is it's, even though you're in this piece of sandstone, it feels like the middle of nowhere, but really, no, it's a crossing roads. And there's a lot more to that crossing roads that, you know, you get at first glance.
Yeah, and I think that's our hope for the future is to be able to connect with these other stories. And people want to hear the other stories too. Once they find out, okay, there's rock art on Pompey's Pillar. Oh, there were other people other than Roland Clark here. Well, tell us about that. I'm like, perfect, yes.
Well, how many times have you had, you know, get visitors that have, you know, they've gone up, they've seen the signature, and then they come back down into the visitor center and say, oh, did you see the Native American drawings or this signature, that? And no, and they run right back up the rock because they see it.
Yeah.
Which I think,
really cool thing this year was, you know, we kind of developed our trail around the rock, and people would stop and tell us, we've been coming here for years. We've been here 5 times, 6 times, whatever. And I never saw this particular mark, or I didn't know this was here. So that was encouraging. That was kind of the shining moment of the season, I think, is to connect people with more Pompey's Pillar than they had seen before.
Well, I think part of that too is you get good rangers like yourself out there that want to show people that and tell the news stories and find those other stories. Because the reality of jobs and the way people are sometimes is they use Pompey's Pillar as a jumping off point, or I'm going to be here for a season. They don't really get into it as much. But when you have people who are invested and spend the time there, I think that's awesome. And each park has those type of people. And I think it's finding them and having those conversations with them and really understanding, like, there's a bigger reason to why this is the way it is today.
Right.
And there's people that care about that.
Yeah, and the really cool thing that I'm learning is you really don't even have to be here as long as I have. It's the amount of passion that you bring to the job. With says people who are here for a season, have left their own marks. And it's because they were passionate and they wanted to learn and they wanted to share that with other people. And that's the secret.
Well, it's kept you there 17 years, so.
Yeah. Well, it's kind of turned me into a BSer,
Oh, what do you mean?
Well, I'll go out, I'll be off on my, I'll be just walking, or I'll be out taking pictures or something, and people will talk, and I'll just quit what I'm doing and we'll just carry on a conversation and wander around and take a look, and so that's something that I never thought was possible when I started, because and I didn't realize it, but there are a lot of park rangers that are like me, that are by nature, they're introverted.
Yeah.
This is their chosen career, and we excel at it. It's just not something you think about. It's like, oh, you got to be an extrovert to be a park ranger. Well, no, you don't. No.
I think some of the best park rangers are introverts, because they're the ones that look at the details and they're studying the information. They're giving us the knowledge, the fun facts, the science behind it.
Yeah, and then observing, or listening, as the case may be sometimes. So
exactly. No, I think that's really something that you're right. A lot of people think you gotta talk. You're giving these presentations, or they're doing this and doing that, but at the same time too, you gotta do the other side of that. You have to do the research. You have to know everything.
You have to know your resource.
Yeah, exactly.
And you'll never know everything. I'll never know everything, even about Pompey's Pillar, but you have to have a fundamental understanding of why, what's the meaning of the place? Why is it significant? And that's pretty cool too, because it's going to be special to different people for different reasons. And so as an interpretive park ranger, your job is to find that reason and connect them with it. Then they'll be, remembering Pompey's Pillars.
Reverend Marcus here. Before we get going with today's episode, I want to let all of you beautiful people know that we here at Wandering Ways have a new apparel line out. Yes, I know we're that big now. We've partnered up with the people at Teespring to put out our design on some shirts, from short sleeve, long sleeve sweatshirts to tank tops. We even got socks out there. So if you want to get your hands on some of this cool apparel and support the podcast here, check us out at teesprings.com/stores/wandering-ways. That's teespring.com/stores/wandering-ways. Go ahead, check it out, get yourself something nice, or get someone else something nice for them as a little, hey, how you doing? But anyways, check it out, teespring.com/stores/wandering-ways.
Yeah, that's like the dream right there, isn't it?
Yeah.
Just get paid to visit all these wonderful places.
That's what Zac Efron's doing. I saw on Netflix he went to Iceland. It's actually a really, really good show. Like I feel like I'd be best friends with him after watching.
Yeah, like a really cool guy to get just to know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Definitely. If you're on Netflix and looking for something to watch, it's a good, like, he goes to Iceland and looks at like the thermogeology, energy, and he does like the food and everything.
Oh, cool.
Like health and wellness kind of.
Yeah.
It's good.
Yeah. We'll just keep things going here. Going back I kind of want to go into, you said like geology was like your kind of background. And to say, did you go to school for geology or like your formal education in geology?
Not not per se. That it was actually my interest even in college. My first degree was in anthropology. It really actually should have been geology, if I were to be honest, or paleontology, because I'm one of those people that never outgrew their fascination with dinosaurs. So I still have it.
Well, dinosaurs,
Yeah,
dinosaurs are too cool to ever.
they are. And that's another thing we're always still learning about. Think you have everything figured out, and then they discover something new, and you're like, holy smokes.
Yeah.
My
I actually was just listening to a different podcast, and they found like a human, not a Homo sapien, but like another human kind of full skeleton that's over like 7 or 8 million years old.
Ooh,
Yeah,
take a
it's
time
supposed to
frame way
be.
back.
Yeah, it's supposed to be like
Wow.
the oldest like human, like it's Arpicus, or I don't know. The skeleton's name is Artie because they'll name the skeletons, but it's like I'm gonna blank on the scientific name for it,
Is
but
it
it was
Australopithecine by any
uh
chance?
yeah, I think
There's
that might
another
be
one
it.
though too in
Yeah,
there.
but it's called they named the skeleton Artie, but he was found in like in where it is in Africa. I think Ethiopia is where.
Ah,
And it was, I mean, but it's just cool because the guy that was talking about it, he was going off about the different kind of how the body was built. And it was an upright like or like creature, and but it had like really
bipedal.
long arms. So
However, they were still, you know, I can't remember what the term from brachiopedalism, I think, is where like the great apes will knuckle walk.
yeah, they
I
actually
wonder if
talked about it a little bit,
yeah.
and he said that this skeleton they think did not knuckle walk, but
Hmm.
the arms were long enough to where they would think like maybe it would knuckle walk.
Okay, maybe he's a missing link.
Yeah, could very well be.
Bigfoot. No, I'm just kidding.
Ah, well, I was looking at you guys' podcast, and I saw that you'd been looking into the Rougarou
Yeah.
Well,
down
so
down in Cajun, Louisiana. But have you done a lot of digging on that yet?
so funny story with the Rougarou. So it's a French word, and the Little Shell language is a mixture of Métis, which is French, or a little bit of French, Chippewa, and Ojibwe.
Uh-huh.
And the word that the Little Shell would use for Bigfoot or the hairy creatures is Rougarou, but Rugaru. But it comes from that shapeshifter.
Yeah, that makes sense though, because there's a common cultural tie there too. But I just learned about the Rougarou, so I was kind of excited.
Well, I named my Jeep the Rougarou.
Is it green?
No, it's white and black, but I have stickers
Cool.
on it that if you're ever in Billings and you see it, I look like I'm looking for Bigfoot. That's what the Jeep looks like. So yeah.
What are you
But
gonna do when you guys find him?
Oh, that's when we're gonna really make it big, is when we find them. I actually I have a Bigfoot story. I like turned him in, because I swear I've seen him, and I turned it into Bigfoot Hunters. It wasn't like Bigfoot Hunters, it was like Bigfoot hunting organization. But they pulled a map out of like where I was. They asked me the path that he took and everything. And so I swear I found him. I don't have any proof. I think I was like 13. So like
Oh, cool.
the whole smartphone generation where you can record everything like that wasn't really a thing then. So,
Yeah,
but
it changes everything.
yeah,
My luck though is I would find him, and then I would drop my phone out of excitement and step on it.
right.
Oops, there goes my proof.
Yeah, that would too. And then, there's that fun, really kind of fun theory about Bigfoot. It's called flat Bigfoot theory, because the only pictures and video is like a side view of him.
Uh-huh.
So when he looks right at you, because he just is really flat, so you can't see him. So that's how he hides really well, is he just looks at you.
Like Flat Stanley.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's just one of those like silly theories they got going for, the flat Bigfoot theory.
But take him around to all the national parks and take pictures of him there.
Right.
Yeah.
Or find him.
Yeah. We can just jump kind of back into Pompey's Pillar. Listening to you talk today about it, the really cool part is it kind of seems like when you go to you get like an Airbnb or rent a cabin and they got a guest book where they want you to sign, and like sometimes they'll let you tell a story and whatnot. It kind of seems like Pompey's Pillar is like the North American guest book for that area.
Yeah, definitely. And that was, that's human nature too, is to want to leave your mark. And sometimes people would, leave their mark just as fun. And sometimes, it might be the last anybody ever knows of somebody. And you see things like Pompey's Pillar along the other trails. So down in Wyoming, they've got at least two. They've got Independence Rock, and they've got Register Rock or Newspaper Rock outside of Fort Laramie. So it's just, as all these people are coming by, and it's not just with the Americans, it's the same with the rock art. They're leaving their stories as they go by. And it's just kind of a historical timeline written in stone in that way, is people leaving their little anecdotal stories.
Well, and I like that because not only does it tell you that, but at certain parts on the rocks, you can see like, this is where water was here, or this was when wind was here by the way the rock is, and to me, and then you add that context with the physical that the humans left, and you can start telling those stories and really saying like, they were water people or they were wind people, and this is going on.
Yeah, that's the thing about the rock, about the sediment, is even that each little piece of sand or silt, that tells you a story about the ancient environment. So when you see sandstone, that when the massive ancient river, just probably beyond our ability to comprehend, was flowing eastwards to the inland sea, it had a fast current, and so the only thing that it would drop was the heavier sand. When its current would slow down, it would drop finer particles. And so when you look at Pompey's Pillar and you see the layers like a birthday cake, you're actually watching the ancient environment change over and over throughout the river's existence. So that's my new favorite thing.
Yeah.
You don't think about dirt being able to be a clue to the ancient environment, but it is.
Well, and we were blessed enough to do a big road trip a couple of years ago. We went down to Canyonlands National Park in Moab, Utah, and there was a ranger, and he was talking about, because you could really see the canyon of the Green River and the Colorado River where they create that island in the sky. And he was saying each layer, this is what we know, this is what we can see. And it's just like, it goes millions and thousands of years back, but when you can actually see and look at that with your own two eyes, you really start to question and see how things progress and time changes. And you're like, well, that makes sense. It took them that long, to grow feet, it took them that long, or to do this.
Yeah.
It makes sense.
Yeah. That makes you consider how short human time really is.
It does, but it also helps me personally understand we can only comprehend, as humans, we can only comprehend so much.
Yeah.
So to be able to comprehend that, we don't have that ability or power yet.
I'm not sure if we ever will.
Exactly.
Which is okay too,
Yeah.
It's like you never know it all, and we better stop thinking that we do.
Right.
Humbling, I guess. That's the way I think about it. It's very humbling.
It really is humbling to see that, and then you realize, we think, the average lifespan is, I think, like 70 or 80 years. Like, we think that's so long, but it really is just a little blip in the
Yeah.
true lifespan, and when you see it, it does humble you, which is awesome.
Yeah, it's good for us.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, in that sense, if you're looking at like the pillar, right? It's a layer of like a grain of sand. That's how tall it is. Like
Yeah.
that's us in comparison to
Yeah.
this.
To the
Mhm.
rest of the world,
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
or universe.
Well, and if what I saw some really cool night pictures of Earth and the way the lights lit up, like South America, Europe,
Mhm.
North America. And I was looking at it and I was like, we're no different than the bacteria that lives in the hot pools of Yellowstone,
Pretty
and
much.
we're the ones that have bioluminescence.
Yes.
You don't know how they're doing that. What's like this big space organism that can see us?
Yeah.
Like, oh, look, they have bioluminescence now.
They finally evolved.
Right?
Gosh, it took them forever.
Exactly, with the lights.
Yeah. I'm afraid we might have had a setback this year, but they're probably a little disappointed, but
Right.
upward and upward.
We're having fun. 2020. I think one thing that 2020 has really made me humbly appreciate is the fact that I've been able to sit down and kind of really assess like the things I truly want to do and see, because it's put a strain on that. It's like
It sure did.
yeah. And
That
it's like,
things you took it for granted like 10 months ago, and then no longer do. You're like, whoa.
right, and I'm starting to see more people are starting to cherish time with their families.
Yeah.
Work isn't as stressful on as many people. It's more simple, it's slowing down, and I think we kind of needed that restart.
Yeah.
So it's good. The good medicine is coming through all of this.
I hope so. Yeah. You hope something good comes of it.
And then it won't.
That's best case scenario. So if people learn to cherish their time with their friends and family, that's a huge lesson to learn.
Yeah, it's been that's really something to me. I think that's one reason why we even started this podcast was, we truly, on our car trips, on our road trips, going to all these beautiful parks, it's like we tell stories to people all the time, and we have these experiences, and we want to share them and share a little bit more, and have people like you on that can tell us about Pompey's Pillar and tell the world about it, because if no one else is going to do it, let's us do it. Let's share stories and have a place for them.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's been fun.
Yeah, no, and unfortunately, it's that kind of time. We're getting towards the end. So at the end of all of our podcasts, we do kind of a final words or final thing. And so since you are our guest, we're going to let you go first. This can be like literally anything you want. If you got anything you want to promote, you want to tell any kind of public health message, public announcement, literally anything you would like to tell the world, go ahead and let them know.
That's kind of a surprise. I wasn't expecting that one. I think the first thing that popped up while you were talking is that I would just say, don't give up, because it's a scary time and stressful time, and don't give up. There's better times on the other end of it, and then you can get out and explore and maybe come see Pompey's Pillar.
Yeah,
I love it.
Look at me, I'm a permanent exhibit out here.
Yeah,
I like that. That's a good one. Put that on the badge.
Yeah.
No, that's awesome. Zach, you got any final words today?
My final word is go find your Pompey's Pillar. Go find that park in your neck of the woods that isn't, it's not the Yellowstone, it's not the glacier, but it's just as beautiful and has just as much information to teach you, and go learn from it. I think that's something that we all need to do. We need to find the places close to home that, we can learn from. Whether it's New York and you're going to find the tree that everyone's written on in Central Park, or if it's Pompey's Pillar and you want to see William Clark's signature, I think go do it.
No, that's awesome. Reverend's final words of wisdom today from me. Everyone stay beautiful. You're awesome. I can't thank you enough for listening. I want to say a special thank you to you, Sonni. This was an awesome interview, and I thank you so much for coming on. It was awesome to talk to you about being a park ranger, Pompey's Pillar, all the fun stuff we talked about today. I guess my main thing is, go find that hidden gem. You never know what's out there. You're going to find something that's cool, and keep learning. There's so much to learn out there, that we have so much that we need to learn so we can keep this going. But I mean, that being said, peace out.